This is the art of leapfrogging.
Business titans,
Nobel Peace Prize winners,
philanthropists.
entrepreneurs,
Don't live half a life.
With me, your host, Maxwell, and Maher Kadura. This is the art of leapfrogging.
Akhtar, nice to see you again.
Yes.
I'm looking forward to this discussion.
Yes, me too.
Thank you. And I want to kick off. You had a long, exciting, fruitful journey. I want you to take us back to its origins and tell us your journey to success. Can you share it with us?
Yeah, so I'm not sure that it is success, but it is a long journey. Kid grew up in India, middle class family, dabbled in lots of different things. Really nothing stuck in terms of studies till I decided to go study architecture. And I got admission at one of the most prestigious architecture schools in India. And I completed 6 years of architecture schooling, including working with some very exciting architects at that time, which gave me this tremendous grounding. And one of the groundings that I got was working on a project in Saudi Arabia, which was the Qasr al-Hukam project out of India. So I never went to Saudi Arabia, but we were doing all the working drawings for this massive complex. And my boss got jaundice, and we were just a 2-person firm. And I had to take on the responsibility and hire people and grow the organization so that we could actually complete this project. And that gave me some amazing insights, grounding, learning by fire. And after that, I got admitted into MIT to come and teach, to come and study there, which is what I did. I did my master's. I started teaching Islamic architecture at the Aga Khan program for Islamic architecture. I got my PhD there. And then after a decade of teaching, decided to go into the nonprofit sector, because some friends basically asked me to join them on a new nonprofit focused on mega cities, large metropolitan areas. This is in early 1990s. And then eventually landed up in Seattle because my wife had joined Microsoft. She moved to Seattle. I started another nonprofit focused on bridging the digital divide. In early 2000, Microsoft came calling, asked me to run their corporate philanthropy, which is what I did for a decade. And now with this last inning in my life, I'm back into education and working on a number of different topics, including my book that I published and wrote around purpose and purpose mindset. So that's in a nutshell encapsulates a journey that I've had where everything that I've done is because an opportunity was presented to me rather than my going out and seeking something.
Was there a moment, a turning point, a milestone in this journey that you remember till now that it was a change maker in your journey?
So there were lots of milestones, right? As I mentioned, the first milestone in this journey was I was working for Jeffrey Bawa, who's a very well-known architect in Sri Lanka. I was there as an intern. Architects have to before you graduate, you have to go do 6 months of practical training. I went and I just wrote him cold. He asked, yes, come to Sri Lanka, work with me. And he put me on this project, which was the largest project he was doing, which was the Sri Lankan Parliament complex. And I was working out of his house, and there were just 3 people on that project. And as a kid, you suddenly get this amazing insight from this individual who's so well known. And it's suddenly, just by observing him, you're actually understanding how critical it is to give attention to even the smallest thing possible, right? So that kind of extends out into how you even think about life journey and people. Everybody is important. Everything is important. So that's one lesson, right? Then when you come at MIT, everybody is top notch, right? So you are always struggling to find your place. And that's where you start discovering that hard work can get you incredibly far. And no work is not desirable, right? I was working with at the Aga Khan program, and they would ask me to fix the copying machine or get coffee. And I was a master's student, and it didn't really matter. Because if you showed up, the dean then came and said, hey, help me design a new course. I was a kid, 26, 27 years old, but he saw my work ethic and he said, this guy will actually take instructions and do things and show up every day, which allowed me to actually become a faculty member at the institution. So these are just interesting turning points, right? That you say, how do you show up in the most effective way? And then the third thing I realized, because as a faculty member at MIT, the Aga Khan program, wherever I traveled in the Islamic world, we were treated like royalty. We got to meet the heads of state, we got to meet some of the top faculty members, and we quickly realized that you could not let that get into your head, because at the end of the day, you were actually working on behalf of the people, the poor people living in these communities, the architecture that you had to design, and all of this was fine, but that was never going to be your life. So how do you quickly realize that you were never going to be able to walk in somebody else's shoes, but you could definitely taste the ground that you were going to walk on? So these were just pivotal points in how you kind of change. And then when you come to Microsoft, I was told that I had a neon light on my head, right? Money. I was giving away money on behalf of Microsoft, and every single person was my friend. So how do you kind of then say, hey, this is not, nobody's your friend. They're all looking for money. And how do you treat people with dignity and respect, even if you have to say no, because you could not give money to everybody, but everybody was doing good work. It's just that it did not fit within your parameters of what you wanted to support. So you had to treat people with respect. And saying no became a very important aspect of my job, where I had to do it with dignity so that I did not make people feel unwelcome.
What was a project that you have funded or a cause that you have funded that you feel very proud that you were involved in while you were at Microsoft?
So there are two things. When I came to Microsoft, like with a lot of companies, a lot of entrepreneurs, they all want to fund something at its inception. They say, hey, we'll give you money for a year, then you have to go find the resources on your own. Take it as seed funding. And I had to quickly tell these folks that, look, that's not the way it works in the non-profit sector. You have to give commitment, which is a multi-year commitment. Mm-hmm. And that, I think, was very hard for the organization to understand, because we were not a foundation. We were operating on current budgets. And Mahir, every year the budget changes. So how do you make a multi-year commitment, not knowing whether you would have that resources available again the following year? But we learned and we developed it where we actually made long-term commitment so that people felt that we were vested in them. So that was one. The second thing that I kind of changed that trajectory. So I feel very proud that I actually changed the culture and the mindset within the company. The other thing is that we actually started helping non-profit organizations set up these technology learning centers around the world, whether it is in Gaza, or whether it's in Jordan working with women, or in Egypt working with kids. We set up these centers. We set up 70,000 of these centers. Now, we didn't set it up, but these were partners we had in over 110 countries, impacting millions and millions of lives, right? Whether it was women, kids, elderly, men getting access. Now, remember, we were doing this in early 2000. Right? We didn't have laptops. We didn't have iPhones. We were actually all using large machines. We would take these machines in a boat, on a donkey, on a camel into these communities and set them up, dial up, internet access. So that to me was incredibly exciting, because with that access, you opened up a window to the world of information and eventually knowledge. And I think that's the two things I feel incredibly proud of.
What was the importance of saying no to you? I know sometimes it's difficult, but how important?
No, so it became it kind of came about accidentally. We had a process, like in any company, of how we would give grants, right? So I had a team of people that were all over the world. We had decentralized decision making. And so selecting what we wanted to fund was a process, and it was well established. And I didn't really get involved in that, right? My team kind of came and they percolated the project up, and they eventually said, this is what we want to fund. I would take a look at it, I would question, and I would say, yeah, fine, let's go ahead. But there were countless that were actually coming to us and saying, I want funding, and we had to say no. So my team said, hey, you get paid the big bucks, you go say no. Right? Bill Gates is asking for money, to fund a particular project. Steve Ballmer who's going to say no to them? So how do you actually say no so that they were very smart. They're not, they were very clear that, hey, you all make the decisions. We are bringing this to you. But you have to kind of learn how to say no. So I would actually get out into the community, small non-profit organizer, group working in Palestine saying, hey, we want to do this. And suddenly Microsoft says no. So how do you say no to them? By saying, look, it doesn't fit, but let me help you here. Let me give you technology. Let me introduce you to somebody else that can actually support you. This is not within our core mission. So a lot of times people will hug me after I said no to them. Because at the end of the day, even though it was no to that specific thing, it was never a no to a relationship with Microsoft.
Okay. Clear. Moving to leapfrogging. Can you share with us your leapfrogging idea, or one of the ideas that you believe it was transformative? You mentioned something about purpose, like a purpose mindset, and you wrote a book about it. Is this your leapfrogging idea?
Yeah, so again, this came out of my journey at Microsoft. Right, so here I am at Microsoft. My wife was at Microsoft much earlier than me, and I would see these young people in the month of October running around trying to raise money for causes. And I always wondered, why is it that people are doing this? When I came to Seattle and I became part of this, I kind of quickly realized that this was part of the DNA of the company. Here is a hyper-competitive company that is focused on winning at all costs, yet it had this large body of people that were actually willing to go out and invest in the community. And I wanted to write that story, I wanted to tell that story, and I wanted to try and figure out what kind of mindset led that to happen. And what is interesting is, if you take anybody, they're driven by three things, right? One, there are people that are just driven by purpose. There are others that are driven by money. And there are others that are driven by status. And there is no value judgment, right? When I came into this country, my first thing was, hey, I had to get a job. After I graduated, I had to pay back loans. So I was driven by money. Or a position that I had to get a position which was status. Purpose came afterwards. For many people, these young people who came into Microsoft were working 18 hours a day, trying to change the world through technology. The company put in programs to expose them into the community that they were going to grow and live in. And through that, they created these attachments and commitments that encouraged them to go out and participate. And in doing so, they discovered purpose. They found purpose, and purpose mindset to me is that leapfrogging idea. Right? Purpose is where you started discovering of why you exist rather than what you do and how you do it. Most of us focus on the what and the how, but not the why. And that to me has been this untold story of Microsoft. So that's what I did with the book. But since the book, what we found was that everybody talks about purpose. Purpose is now being used all over the place. Every company wants to try and think about inculcating purpose, and purpose is important, but nobody knows how to go about doing it. How do you get people to articulate their purpose? And that's what I do. I work with organizations, I work with individuals, and I actually get them to articulate their purpose statement. Most of us have not crafted a statement that says, this is my purpose. We've crafted a mission statement, we've crafted a vision statement. This is where I want to go. I have created my plan. This is what I will be in 5 years. This is where I want to go. But we really don't step back. So we don't know what our meaning in life is and what meaning we want from our life, but we start searching that in our work, and there is a disconnect. And at the end of the day, purpose is not about your work. Purpose is about your life, how you live. And your life includes yourself, your family, your community, and your work. So how do we get people to understand that, work is not everything, and that as a human being, you should show up everywhere, whatever time you might do, right? But how do you show up? And so that was the thing. And the other thing is that, we've been trained to now chase happiness. But Carl Jung said that, you cannot get happiness without a dose of sadness. Because if there is no sadness, you will actually not know happiness. So So stop chasing happiness, become content, become fulfilled. And that to me is what that leapfrogging of an idea around purpose is to really get people to become comfortable into who they are, how they exist, how they want to show up. And the thing is to get the focus from the individual to the collective, which is to move from the me to the we.
If I want to ask you, for our audience, if somebody is listening and is saying, can you give me in a nutshell, what would be your advice? How can I find my purpose? What should I do? Can I do it in 3 steps, in 2 steps, 5 steps? Can you give us the, as they say, the school answer?
Yes, so we do these workshops all the time, and it's really a 2-hour workshop. And literally, again, this came out of a conversation that I was having as part of my book. Right after about 100 talks, the book came out. It was in COVID, so I was just sitting here in this corner and talking to people. And after a while, just talking about the idea, we said, let's actually see if we can get people to discover it. And we came up with a very simple workshop where we get people to start articulating, write down your 3 strengths, write down your 3 values, and we give them words to choose from. And then we show them how to use that to craft a statement, which is your purpose statement. And then we take that and then we say, this is how you're going to use it for yourself. We do it with a group of people, and then we get them to come up with a group statement. And from that group statement, we actually come out with a organizational purpose statement. And we've done that for several companies now. We work with companies like Microsoft and Starbucks and Avanade and other small companies, university students, faculty members, government leaders. And in 2 hours, we can actually get you to craft a purpose statement.
So in a nutshell, identify your top strengths,
Yes.
identify your top values, merge them together to produce how you want your life to be, and
Correct.
you write it.
Right.
And then you go and start imagining yourself living it.
That's the most difficult thing, right? So we
Yes.
can actually get people to go through the workshop to articulate their statement.
Okay.
It is how do we then get them to actually live it? Because we have been so trained to have a transactional mindset, right? If I do this, this is the reward I will get. If I do X, this is what I will do. We do that with our kids, right? I mean, hey, don't touch that, I'll give you a lollipop. Get good grades, I'll buy you a toy. And it's all transactional. So we've never really got people to figure out, we tell them, who are you going to be? Grow up to be a doctor, grow up to be an engineer, go become a scientist. But we never really ask our kids who they want to serve. So our mindsets have been so ingrained with transactional approach, so it takes time. And we kind of get people to work on it, which is why doing work in a group is important, is that these groups can hold each other responsible. In company meetings, I kind of get them to say, hey, start off and just check on everybody. Did you use your strengths and your values in anything that you were doing? How did this align to your purpose? The other thing I also try and get people to understand, which I think the audience should remember, is your purpose, your personal purpose, and your company's purpose should not be fully aligned. If they are fully aligned, then you're a robot. You only live to work, right?
Can you repeat this? Because it's interesting.
So if your purpose, your personal purpose and your company's purpose is fully aligned, then you are just a robot. All you're doing is working. What we are trying to get people to understand is to strengthen the connections, find the connections, and then work on it on a regular basis so that connections become strong. So in terms of strife, in terms of tension, that will not break, because you will always have ups and downs in your work. But if you have worked on it and say, this is how I'm applying my strengths, this is where my values match, then you will say, hey, that is fine. Right? At the end of the day, work is work, which is why I ask people to go and apply their purpose and use their strengths and values for yourself, for your family, for your community, and your work. So it's part of that 4 concentric circle. So you want to be careful that your life is not just focused on your work. We've forgotten how to even talk about ourselves without mentioning that I'm the X of so-and-so.
I was reading a research, I don't know how valid is this, is that people with purpose, They live longer. They fall sick less. The stress of making decisions is less than the people without a purpose. I don't know what's your reaction to
so
this?
there is absolute research that shows that, right? That every single human being on earth has a purpose. It is whether people have articulated it and discovered it.
Mm-hmm.
Many of us don't spend time doing that. So we kind of have it in our heads and then we see dissonance. But those that have actually fully articulated their purpose and live it, they live a much healthier life. They are much more cognitively balanced. They are far more productive. They are far more collaborative in what they do. And psychologists have done this work and they've actually shown through experiments how people with purpose will outperform folks. And that's what was actually very interesting when I did the Microsoft analysis, right? That all of these folks that were out in the community doing this work were also high performers at Microsoft. It wasn't as if they were not doing work.
Yeah.
Right? So these were, who were leading major divisions at Microsoft. Some were kids who were actually doing this. So I think purpose is a very important self-driver because it releases chemicals that actually make you feel good.
Yes. So Akhtar, what is your purpose?
So in a nutshell, my purpose is to bend the arc of humanity through my writings, teaching, and art to make the world a better place. So whatever I do, whether I give a talk, whether I go teach, whether I do any consultancy, or this art that I do behind me or a book that I write, it's all about doing it in a way I am helping people shift their mind so that they can contribute much better to the world.
I love it.
Well, Maha and Akhtar, thank you very much. Now, Akhtar, there is one thing that we do know, that there is a Leapfrog show coming up. It's going to be a live event where people can come along online called How to Discover Your Purpose. Just very briefly, perhaps you could let us know what's going to be in the show. And again, in a nutshell, because...
Yeah! So Meher kind of teased that out, right? That, hey, how are you going to get people to discover their purpose? And on that show, we will take people through that journey, right? In a very quick way. Actually, I can get people to write their purpose statement in 5 minutes.
So we could do that on the show.
And that's what we will do on the show.
Wow.
Right? So we will get a live audience to actually start crafting their strengths, their values, and their purpose. And we just very quickly, right? It's a very simple thing. And I'm telling you, CEOs of companies have written it. National ministers in Egypt and other countries have written it. People have written it in Arabic, Spanish, Japanese, Chinese, English. Kids have written it. So the act of writing is the discovery. And I think that's what we are going to do in understanding how you can craft a purpose statement. Of course, there is much more than that, what we do in our workshop, but that will just give our audience a taste of what it is that we are trying to do with the art of leapfrogging and how to discover your purpose and how we want to actually get everybody to have a purposeful mindset so that they become far more effective leaders.
Wow, that's really good. I've got to say, I'm looking forward to that. Okay, I'm sure that everybody who comes to that show will bring their pens and papers, or indeed be able to fill in some online forms and come along with you to the end of the show. And no doubt, Maha, you'll be with us on that one as well. Perhaps before we go, so that people can find a bit more about you before they come to that show, where can they find out more? What is your own website?
So you can go to akhtarBadshah.com or LinkedIn. Today, everything is on LinkedIn. Right?
Okay, no worries. And of course, you'll be able to find that, of course, on theartofleapfrogging.com as well. Well, before we carry on, I've got to say thank you very much for answering that question. I've got to hand you straight back to Maha.
I have a question. I mean, what would define success for you moving forward?
Yeah, so sometimes these are very interesting questions, right? What is success? Every day I wake up is success. I mean, at this point in time, you've woken up and you're on 2 feet, that is success, right? So you kind of start from there. Then you say, hey, I got to go talk to 30 students in my class last night. And I brought in an amazing person to talk to them who's actually built his company, sold it, is multimillionaire, is now created an organization that is actually getting people to live holistically and balanced lifestyle. That to me is success. Writing is a success. Sharing my art is a success. But I think the most important thing I really want to do, which I don't know whether I'll be successful or not, is that I want to have every single human being on the planet craft their purpose statement.
I love it.
Personal purpose statement. And the only way that is going to happen is not because Akhtar Badshah made it happen. It is because millions of people who are going to go through this journey are going to get their kids to do it, and they are going to get somebody else to do it, and they are going to get somebody else to do it, and they will take this and change it and come up with another way to do it. Then you get a movement. Then you get people actually starting thinking about a balanced lifestyle, a holistic lifestyle, and how you get your mind to become much more stable so that we stop in this mad rush of how we live and how we can slow down a little bit so that we can all, at the end of the day, Meher, the success for all of us should be everything that we do, every single thing that we do should be for the survival of this pale blue dot that is suspended in a sunbeam, which is a planet.
I love it.
If we do that, then we'll be fine.
Maher's Insights.
Akhtar, thank you very much. It was very insightful and motivating and inspiring. And I really love the idea that if we live in a world that every single human being has a purpose, just imagine this earth, how it would look like.
I really want to appreciate you taking the lead with the Leapfrogging book and how you've actually got people to rethink their mindset and how we show up as individuals and how we show up as leaders. So I greatly appreciate it. So Max and Meher, both of you, thank you very much. And my purposemindset.org website where people can actually go and discover more around purpose and all the podcasts and everything else that is there on it.
Well, gentlemen, that seems like a nice end. So there we go. Thank you very much. Maher, the founder of Leapfrogging, of course, with the amazing Akhtar Badshah, who's going to tell you about your purpose. Go and visit his site. You had it earlier on in the show. Or you can find out more about both Maher, the art of leapfrogging, and, of course, the show where you can find out how to discover your purpose, all on theartofleapfrogging.com. So I'd like to say thank you very much to Maher and, of course, our very special guest, Akhtar. Also, of course, coming up in the future episodes, all those other guests that we're going to bring in to teach you their leapfrogging moments for making business and life better very, very quickly. If you'd like a physical copy of the book,
To buy your physical copy of the book and learn more about how to join our Leapfrog movement and the amazing people in it, visit our website, theartofleapfrogging.com.
And that remains from myself, Maxwell, and Maher Kadua to say thank you very much for listening, and please join us again next time for the art of leapfrogging. This is the art